You won't believe what happened in our quiet neighborhood, when the HOA's most entitled woman pointed a gun at my wife, not realizing she was the commander of the president's Secret Service detail. What started as a petty neighborhood feud turned into the most terrifying, unbelievable day of my life. Stick around till the end, and if stories that twist reality into chaos keep you hooked, make sure to subscribe for more tales that'll leave your heart pounding. It started like any other Saturday morning, with the smell of coffee and the hum of sprinklers echoing down our suburban cul-de-sac, the kind of place where everything looked perfect on the outside. Manicured lawns, white fences, cheerful flags fluttering above porches. But beneath it all simmered enough resentment, gossip, and control to power a small dictatorship, and leading that silent tyranny was our HOA president, Karen Whitmore, a 50-something self-declared guardian of community standards, who patrolled the neighborhood like a hawk in yoga pants, always armed with a clipboard, camera phone, and unsolicited opinions about everyone's trash bins, lawn lengths, and Christmas decorations. My wife, Rachel, never cared for her. In fact, Rachel tolerated Karen's antics far better than most because she had learned how to keep calm under pressure, and I guess that made sense, given that Rachel wasn't just any government agent but the commander of the Secret Service Presidential Protective Division, a title she couldn't exactly put on the HOA's contact form. To Karen, Rachel was just a polite, quiet woman who worked in security or something. She had no idea she was dealing with one of the most highly trained agents in the country. That morning, the argument began over something absurd, a flag. Not the American one, but a small, discreet flag Rachel had planted near the porch, a dark navy banner with the insignia of the fallen, honoring agents lost in the line of duty. It wasn't political, it wasn't flashy, but Karen, self-appointed arbiter of aesthetics, decided it violated the HOA's decorative standards. I was trimming hedges when I heard her shrill voice. "I've told you twice already, Mrs. Adams," she barked. "That flag isn't on the approved list. You need to remove it immediately." Rachel, calm as ever, turned from where she was kneeling, wiping her hands on her jeans. "Karen," she said with that measured tone that could calm down entire crisis rooms, "the flag's staying. It honors colleagues who died protecting our country. I won't remove it." Karen's lips tightened, her eyes narrowing behind oversized sunglasses. "Rules are rules," she snapped. "If I let you break them, everyone will. This is how chaos starts." I wanted to laugh. Chaos. In our neighborhood, the biggest crisis was when someone left their trash can out overnight. But before I could say anything, Karen pulled out her phone, snapping pictures. "I'll report this to the board," she muttered, "and to the sheriff if needed. You government types think you're above the law." Rachel stood then, straightening, her height and quiet authority radiating through her stillness. "No one's above the law," she said softly. "But you might want to think carefully before threatening people you don't understand." Something about her tone made Karen flinch, but instead of backing off, she doubled down, spinning rumors that Rachel was dangerous, unstable, maybe even carrying a weapon. That night, our Ring camera caught her snooping near our driveway, taking pictures of license plates. I wanted to call the police, but Rachel said, "No. Let's see what she's really after." The next day, everything spiraled. We were hosting a small barbecue, a few Secret Service colleagues visiting off-duty, dressed casually. Laughing, normal people just trying to unwind. Karen must have seen the dark SUVs parked outside and lost her mind, because suddenly she stormed over, shouting that we were harboring feds and plotting something. We tried to calm her, but she was beyond reason, claiming she knew people at the county level who could shut us down. Then she saw one of Rachel's colleagues, a big guy named Torres, discreetly checking his watch, and she screamed, "You're all armed, aren't you?" Before we could stop her, she ran back to her house, and when she returned, everything changed. She had a gun, a small silver pistol, shaking in her hand, but pointed squarely at Rachel. The world froze. Every instinct in me screamed to run, to grab something, but Rachel didn't even blink. "Karen," she said, voice calm, almost soothing, "put it down. You don't know what you're doing." Karen's voice cracked. "You think you can intimidate me with your government friends? This is my neighborhood. You follow my rules." Behind her, a few neighbors peeked out from curtains. Torres had already moved, subtly, low, positioning himself for a defensive line. But Rachel raised her hand, signaling him to stay back. She took a slow step forward, unarmed, eyes steady. "You're scared," she said. "You think this gun gives you control. But it doesn't. It makes you a second away from a mistake you can't undo." I saw Karen's finger tremble on the trigger. My breath caught. Then, a sound. A single bird call from across the yard, Torres's signal. In a blink, Rachel shifted, disarmed Karen with a precise move that looked almost effortless, twisted her wrist, and the gun clattered to the pavement. The neighbors gasped. Karen cried out, falling to her knees. But Rachel didn't gloat or threaten. She handed the gun to Torres, who secured it safely, then knelt down, looking Karen in the eye. "You pointed a weapon at a federal agent," Rachel said softly. "But I'm not pressing charges, not yet. You're going to get help. And you're going to leave these people alone." For a moment, Karen looked like she might break, like the weight of what she'd done had finally hit her. But instead she spat, "You'll regret this," and stormed away as the police arrived, called by our other guests. They took statements, but when they ran Rachel's name through their system and realized who she was, their demeanor changed entirely, respectful, cautious, almost in awe. Turns out Karen's little stunt had just created a federal incident. Over the next few days, news vans descended on our street. Somehow, the story leaked. Suburban HOA president threatens Secret Service officer. Rachel was livid about the attention. She hated the spotlight, but the truth was unstoppable. Karen's husband, a quiet accountant, came by one night and apologized, tears in his eyes, saying his wife had been struggling with paranoia for months. Rachel told him gently that she wouldn't destroy her life, but the HOA needed new leadership. The board voted her out within a week. We thought it was over. But 2 months later, another twist came. The FBI contacted Rachel about a string of anonymous threats sent to her office, written in the same style as Karen's emails. When they traced them, they found something far deeper. Karen hadn't acted alone. She'd been influenced by a fringe online group that spread anti-government conspiracies targeting Secret Service and FBI families. The case went federal fast. I watched my wife, who'd spent years guarding presidents from assassins, now fighting to protect her own home from digital and personal threats. Late nights, she'd sit on the porch, the same spot where it all started, her eyes scanning the quiet street. "Evil doesn't always wear a mask," she said once. "Sometimes it just wears a smile and brings cookies to the HOA meeting." I realized then how much danger she lived with, even off duty. The investigation dragged on, revealing that Karen had been radicalized by someone online posing as a concerned citizen group leader, who turned out to be under investigation for inciting violence against federal employees. When the arrests came, Rachel was called to testify, her name finally cleared publicly. The irony was that, in her testimony, she defended Karen as someone manipulated, not malicious, and because of that mercy, Karen avoided prison, instead going to psychiatric care. The day Karen returned home months later, frail but calmer, she came to our door. I braced for another confrontation, but instead, she handed Rachel a folded note. "You saved my life," she whispered. "I don't deserve forgiveness, but thank you." Rachel nodded, no emotion, just quiet strength. After she left, Rachel opened the note. Inside were 6 words. "I see the world clearly now." For the first time, Rachel smiled. That night, sitting under the porch light, she told me that even in her years with the president, she'd never faced a moment as tense as that standoff. "Out there, you expect danger," she said. "Here, you don't. That's what makes it scarier." Life eventually returned to normal, or our version of it. The neighborhood calmed down, the HOA reformed under new leadership, and the flag stayed exactly where it was. Sometimes I'd catch neighbors glancing at Rachel with newfound respect, maybe even awe. They didn't know half of what she'd done, but they knew enough to never underestimate her again. Months later, when she was reassigned to lead the president's overseas protection mission, we packed up to move to D.C. On our last night in that cul-de-sac, Karen's husband left a small package on our porch. Inside was a ceramic eagle, the same kind Karen used to decorate her yard with, but this one had an engraving on the base, "For peacekeepers, seen and unseen." Rachel ran her fingers over the words, eyes glistening, then placed it beside the flag. As we drove away at dawn, I looked in the rearview mirror, at that quiet, polished street where appearances once masked chaos, and thought about how easily power, pride, and fear could turn neighbor against neighbor. But I also thought about my wife, who had faced down violence not with rage, but with restraint, proving that true authority isn't about control, it's about composure. And if you've made it this far, remember this: sometimes the real battles don't happen on foreign soil or behind closed doors of power. They happen right in our neighborhoods, where decency meets delusion, and only the brave stand between them. So if stories like this remind you how thin the line is between order and chaos, don't forget to subscribe, because what happened on our street was only one story, and trust me, there are more.